Good evening. This is the August 19th meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:04. And first item on the agenda is public comment. And seeing we have public here. Yes. Come on up. See?
Either one, yeah.
Either one.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Barbara LaFlamme. I've been given a research project, which I have undertaken, to determine what I can find out about the agricultural and horticultural preservation districts in the town of Southampton. So I have quite a bit of information to share with you.
I'm on my fifth meeting of the day.
I already gave everybody your schedule.
It was getting a little hot down there, so I was trying to leave.
So take one of these and pass them around. There should be enough for everyone. Okay.
George wasn't, none of these three people were here.
I've been here like 2 months.
Yeah, really.
Have you do that then?
All right, so let me start by introducing a little bit of this, which was actually in last month's last meeting that we've had. It was in our minutes. And before that, if you'll recall, in this meeting, we discovered on page 163 of the master plan that there was reference to a bylaw that even in the master plan itself states, page 163 at the bottom, agricultural preservation regulations, town adopted a regulation in 1990 that established the ability for lands to be designated as agricultural preservation districts and required, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but then if you go to the top of the next page, it was noted at the time of the writing of the master plan that although lawfully adopted in a town meeting and with sign off by the Attorney General, it was absent from the publicly available zoning bylaws at that time and continued to be. So subsequent to our meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee, I went to the town clerk. Lucy and I spent time going through things. She couldn't find it in the current zoning bylaws. She worked a little bit to find some reference to it. And we still were not clear about one aspect of what she found. Very specifically, it references a map. And I have the paperwork for that if anybody wants to see it. It references a map under section B of this agricultural preservation district, and the map is called the Agricultural Preservation District Delineation and is defined in all lands designated on the map entitled, quote, Agricultural Preservation District, Town of Southampton, unquote, on file with the town clerk. And all lands included in the district shall be included only upon prior written approval of the property owner and adopted by town meeting vote in accordance with the Master and Laws, Chapter 40A. So she had no information about the map at all. She went through what she could find in the office. She went through some old files in the internet or online files. Still couldn't find anything. And the suggestion was to ask some other people, and I know Barbara LaFlamme has been in various roles within the community, and she brought to our attention some more information, including specific maps. These are what you brought last time, Barbara, which I can pass out.
That one's not as pertinent.
It's not as pertinent. There were still some questions after our last meeting, and now Barbara will continue.
Okay. The document that I gave you was actually Annual Town Meeting 5/12/90, Article 28. And what is this, like 10 pages of what is an agricultural preservation district, the rules and regulations that were adopted at that annual town meeting. What is the purpose? and so forth. So at the very same town meeting, there was a district that was put in there. So here's, everybody take one. There's enough for everybody.
I think you actually had that last time, too.
Yes, I did.
5/12/90, so I actually have some copies of that.
Are these town meeting things in the archive somewhere? Because even recent town meetings are not necessarily that findable.
Well, I went through my own records because I have annual reports going back. So at that same May 1990 meeting, the very next article was Article 29, which puts in a parcel. And the only thing that went with this was at the bottom of the page that I've highlighted in yellow. It says the parcel is shown as Lot 15, Map 30 of the official assessor's map of the town of Southampton. So this is the only map. However, I have provided here a map that says map 30, parcel 15, and I've highlighted it in yellow. And if you look at the meets and bounds that are described in Article 29, if you start where it tells you to start, you can go all around, and this is the appropriate map
Confirms it.
that goes with that particular article.
And that's on County Road, Chester Border.
Baruki.
I'm sorry, Baruki.
There's an I at the end there, Baruki.
The Pearl Harbor veteran, no?
Is this
His
His
father.
His father was, yeah.
Ed Baruki?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so now I know where it is.
Now, this is a different map than last week's, or it was a Stennimal?
Yeah, it's not, this is not the best one. I was getting that
Okay,
to check on the boundaries.
I see.
So if you have the three documents, you have this map,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you have it in the town meeting,
yeah.
and you have the agricultural
District.
Article 28.
28 and 29.
Yeah. Then you have everything to do with this particular parcel.
So there's really four documents. Article 28, Article 29,
And a map.
and a map. Oh, I'm sorry, three, I get two copies, sorry. Plus, also, we have the Attorney General's.
Okay, that I do not have, but I knew that you had it.
Okay, so we have the letter dated August 13th, 1990, to the attention of our then town clerk, whose name was Barbara Schmidt at the time, who sent the amendment of the zoning bylaws, and it is signed requesting the approval of Attorney General, and it was endorsed by the Attorney General at the time, whose name was Shannon. And then we also have kind of a form that Barbara Schmidt, I think, sent with it at the time. I didn't make extra copies of that for anybody.
So all of that got approved by the Attorney General, and so it just further proves that none of this was recorded, though, in our bylaws.
Right.
Right, I mean,
Well,
it's
that's
legit.
what
I mean,
we've understood. It's very legitimate. And the last time that I spoke to Lucy about this, our current town clerk, I understood from her that she was just going to incorporate into our current bylaws. There'd be no reason for her not to.
I believe that's true. It was passed, was duly presented and passed.
It is
So
legal.
this would be in the zoning bylaws? Or the-
It should be in the zoning bylaws.
So she's going to just incorporate in the zoning
Or
bylaw.
perhaps already has.
Okay,
And you said you went to the zoning board meeting?
right. And I waited, I'm a liaison, so it was my first meeting, and I waited to the very end of the meeting, and they had nothing, they called for public comment at the end, not at the beginning. And I just said, I was introducing myself and what I was going to do, and then I said, became aware that there was a bylaw that was passed and had been approved by the attorney. Zoning bylaw had never made it to the zoning bylaws. And I said, I thought you were aware of it, and I know some people are doing research just to see, how it, not how it happened, but that in fact all of this is true and that you have the documentation.
Right.
And that was it. There were no comments, but they did not raise it. But I
Okay, well-
felt obligated to raise it.
Well, I had raised it in the
Plan.
planning board meeting
Right.
after, that was the next meeting I attended after this meeting, and after I found out what I did. Partially, you found out the rest of it. And Ryan Gillher, who I think is the chair of the zoning board, am I
Yes.
right? He was there in attendance at the planning board meeting, so he took copies of what I had at the time. What I don't understand exactly is, and I understand there may be a bit of a conflict between our current zoning bylaws and this one, especially the newer bylaw, which has to do with development of cluster housing and also, cluster housing. So the planning board's meeting for this month was canceled because there was nothing on the agenda. And I don't know when the next one is. Suspect it might be the beginning of next month. I will not be able to attend it because of a conflict I have. I'll be away. So I let Paul Demon know, but I think I'm going to share with him all the stuff you got. And if you are interested and want to attend, to supply what they have. So I will do that. I will also follow up with Lucy to see if she did that. Okay?
There's an awful lot of meat in this Article 28. As to who's supposed to do what. And I think sometimes there are some conflicts. It assigns responsibility to the planning board and I think also to the Conservation Commission. And it actually some of it may fall under the appeals. What's
Zoning Board of Appeals?
Zoning
ZBA,
Board of Appeals?
Which I think is
yeah.
the same thing as our zoning board. Are they two different things?
Oh, they're different.
Okay. Do we have a zoning board of appeals?
Yes, Ryan Gillher.
Well, then what's the zoning board? Isn't that the same?
The zoning board comes under the, your articles that you're working on. Your master plan deals with articles that are incorporated into the master plan. That's what you're reviewing.
So you're talking about zoning bylaws.
Yeah.
In terms of bodies of people, is there a difference between the zoning board of appeals and the zoning board in our town?
We have a planning board and a zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
So the planning board enforces zoning bylaws, correct? Zoning board of appeals will hear appeals to those bylaws. I want to put a convenience store in a residential neighborhood.
Thank you very much. So it's
That's
planning
good.
board, zoning board of
Right.
appeals.
Sometimes the members overlap, depending on community. I don't know if it is here, but they work closely when it comes to an appeal, right?
It can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. So this is the first agricultural preservation district that I was able to research. I have another one.
Now, just a question, is this then, the larger thing, the way this was worded, it makes me think that the property here that's referenced from number 29, you see if the town will vote to amend the zoning map to include within the district a parcel owned by the estate of Stanley Mull. So this is only one little piece of what would have been in the agricultural district? Is that
No,
what it is? No?
that's the only one at that time.
At that time.
That was put into the
Because the
agricultural.
way they said to amend the zoning map to include within it a parcel, so it made me feel like there were other ones that were already there, and this was just the new.
No,
Okay.
from my understanding, that's the very first one.
I get the impression that people that want their land to be a part of this have to apply
That's correct.
to be put in it.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
You said you had another example?
I do, I have another one. And this one is from a special town meeting from 1993.
Those town reports come in handy.
I have quite a collection. I have them back to before the turn of the century.
I think Christina does up in her attic, too. She mentioned it.
So in essence, where it talks about single-family homes on some of this property is where the conflict is with the clustered home development?
Well, as you look through, there are several options that came with Article 28. There was the possibility for cluster.
Okay. A farmland cluster development plan.
Right.
So if a property is in the agricultural preservation district, it then gives the planning board or zoning board the ability to enforce these if developments arise on those properties.
And may also include Conservation Commission, I'm not sure. It's extensive, and
Right.
I just wanted to get the document,
Yeah.
and it'll take a while to absorb it.
It sounds like anybody that wanted to put, I think they refer to it as a major residential
And
property.
it's different than an agricultural preservation district, what's called an APR. APR, those rights are sold, and it's usually Department of Agriculture, I think, that buys those rights, but there's an exchange, a monetary exchange to have it in perpetuity for APR. This is also in perpetuity, but there's no real exchange of monetary. It's just somebody who says, my family has farmed it for years, I still want to continue it. I'm not looking.
So this is almost like a local version of APR
Except that,
to some degree.
yeah, sort of. So anyway, this one here, Article 18, is put in place by
Special town meeting.
Henry R. Garrick and others. It refers to this article which was passed in 1990 that outlines all the purposes and so forth of the idea behind it. So that's where the Garrick name comes in, and this is the document that's recorded at the Registry of Deeds that he and his family has signed to put that property into an agricultural, horticultural preservation district.
And is this part of the area off Pleasant Street, or is this?
It's, runs between Line Street and Coleman Road.
Coleman Road. General area there.
Yep. Near that dentist office. Your family dentist.
Behind
In that area.
In that area,
Behind,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And this is the one that, there was actually a Garrick Court that was built?
Correct.
Yeah, and as I come up with the maps, it will indicate that that was part of it. That goes with that.
Okay, so this, got room to include this.
Now, I think what happened, and this is my take on it, although I'm not sure, that the Garrick family, in the process of getting approval for Garrick Court, had some leftover land that they didn't quite know what to do with it. This is my own take from having studied it. So what they did was convey to the town of Southampton the rights for $1, in consideration of $1, to put it into this agricultural and horticultural restriction that's mentioned in Article 18 at the special town meeting. Now, I'll pass around the map, and you're not going to absorb it all at once, because I spent a lot of time thinking at it myself. And it's pages.
Do you have your own copy?
I have one that I put together. And each one of those is different. It's pages and pages.
Right.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely different than what you have right there.
So this whole stack is,
Right.
Oh, I'm just,
They're
oh,
consecutive.
I'm not, I see what you're saying. Huh.
And it's fairly complicated.
and this is all that property?
Yes, excluding what turned out to be Garrett Court.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm just going to look through them quickly and pass them around, and let you all attempt to absorb it.
Boy,
Okay, so
a lot of years.
Lion Street, oh, Town Line, Lion Street, Southampton, Easthampton.
Right.
Dentist office over here, I think, or maybe over here.
Yeah, it's right off.
So that was my dentist. So, oh, it actually was on Lion Street, so I think right here. Okay, so
Probably going to be here.
That's right there. Okay, I'm going to pass
Do you
these.
know how many acres we're roughly talking about here?
Yes.
I guess minus court.
I need a page by page. Okay. Total area it says here?
It's parcels 1B and 1C, and it totals 31.233 acres. Agricultural and forested land. You can find that on
This is on the second map. And most of it.
page 155. That's with the
This
maps.
one, yeah. Yeah, it's 28 acres of forested land, and total acreage 31.2.
So where is that property?
So Garrett, okay, so here's Garrett.
Probably northwest
It's
of
to the
Garrett
right,
Court.
yeah, and northeast.
So if you go, if you're on
north
Line
into
Street
Garrett Court.
and you pass the dentist office on your right and you hang a right onto Pleasant.
No, you'd be on Line Street, and you'd hang a left
Come from.
to go beside the,
Yeah, this is
The
Garrett,
dentist's
this is Garrett
office.
Court. This is all this land up here, so it's the northeast part.
so this is what I think it looks like on our town assessor's map. And I believe, I've got another one here.
So if you're going down Coleman, it's like behind what you see on your right.
That's correct. And I believe
Gotcha.
that it connects with parcel 35, but I have not gotten the deeds that confirm that.
Line Street.
Yeah.
Going down Coleman from
And
the.
there's this little woods road,
Yeah.
and it comes
It'll be
back
that new house
down
on
to
the corner. It'll
here.
be like it's
Yeah.
behind it.
I believe that's
right
Coleman.
here. So there's Garrett Court.
Yeah, where the ducks are on the right, you turn onto
Yep,
Coleman
Coleman,
Road.
so
And they've got
maybe it's 37
the
and
ducks.
Yeah, it's that
those
big
properties
triangle.
there.
So this is landlocked. There's no access to this land.
I was gonna say, so how do you get to that
This is
property?
Garrett Court.
Well,
This is Coleman. This is Pleasant.
there may,
You don't.
So one side of that is the town line.
You don't.
Nothing here.
No, there's no access to this land. It's completely locked.
Unless it's
No, it says there's an access,
This is a right of way someplace.
there's an easement.
dentist.
Is this it?
Right in the top left corner, it says there's an easement to the property
She thinks there's a connection here.
from the backside of Garrett Court.
Yeah.
Properties is an
Or
easement.
is this?
it runs
no, this
along the
goes
side of
nowhere.
Garrett Court.
It looks like an easement, and we don't
There's
see
an
where it
easement
goes because
from
it's
the
cut
corner.
off.
Yeah, you
by
can see
these
things better
things.
from there.
Do you need a?
Keep them in, let's keep them in order.
I'm saying, what street is this?
First two pages for you.
No,
It's not a street.
it's just,
And it's just not
this.
giving you,
Okay.
right, it's just not giving you the
giving us the
details.
Yeah.
See
It's
this
not
little
something-
line here?
Property
I
right here.
believe that's part of the
Yeah,
easement.
that's the only place.
One of them
Yeah,
is
looking-
called,
That's the odd shape.
If this isn't landlocked also, I mean, since we're
Could
not
be.
seeing the detail here,
Right,
this
could
may
be.
all be property too.
I'm
C1.
guessing it's not though, because
I
it's
think
an
this is
odd
part of
piece
C1.
sliver there. It looks like
And
an easement to me.
it goes right along here.
I don't see,
That
yeah, I
property
don't see
goes-
anything else.
And this is
Goes down. It's here.
B2.
This is a different property, yeah.
That's an
But
awkward
the-
cutout.
It looks to me like in this town meeting that she's referencing from 1993, there was a motion carried that this particular parcel would be included under the second to vote to amend the zoning bylaws of the town under Chapter 40A to include land now or formerly owned by Henry Garrick A. All in the previously established agricultural preservation district. So now it's, the previously established agricultural preservation district was established in 90.
Yeah.
And they amended that to include this land.
I believe
All the
that's true.
guidelines are lined up here. So no building, no loam repeat, no soil, trash, da-da-da-da-da. And so it's really just protected land.
Right, except
Here's Garrick.
Except
for $1, it now
It says it.
makes the town of Southampton
These two properties are.
in a position to monitor that, to make sure that there's no infringement or other use on that. So it conveys the responsibility to the town of Southampton. I think the Conservation Commission.
So it's,
To your knowledge, has there been any violation of all of this? We don't know.
Point.
I mean, I'm looking at the map now, it's all wooded. I mean, it's marshy, if you look at some of the maps here.
is the same
So,
thing,
I mean, probably not the most, well, one, it's landlocked, right? So you can't physically get in there. It does show kind of the remnants of where the right-of-way is. You can see a path going in there.
from the end of the cul-de-sac.
Once you're in there,
No, that's a drainage easement
You know, this
at
could
the
be like
top
a-
of the cul-de-sac.
some trail, dirt bike trail or something in there maybe. There's a trail, but.
Well, we, yeah. we
This
get the bike
this
trail.
is the drainage
Drainage in
easement.
Oh, okay.
Whoa, do we know if the Conservation Commission is aware of this parcel?
Quite frankly, I don't think anybody's aware of it
Yeah.
since the
So-
time it was passed.
So the family still owns it?
No,
They conveyed
that's my missing piece,
Yeah,
is
okay.
I don't have the legal deed that conveyed it from the Garrick family to, I believe, the Vogels. I haven't nailed that
And the
part
Vogels
down.
still live there, though, on Coleman.
Yeah, I think it's the family that has the ducks and they got the barn and,
So all that was conveyed to the town of Southampton was the agricultural and horticultural restriction.
correct.
That's all.
But the land
And
belonged
the
to somebody else.
responsibility, somewhere in there, it talks about,
So would the assessors expect taxes to be paid on that land, at least at some rate? Are they collecting taxes?
I don't know, but taxes on farm and agricultural
Pretty
land are
minimal.
very, very minimal.
But
Well, especially with it being landlocked too, I mean, it does make it impossible for development, right? I mean, I know you're taxed on a certain portion of your developable lots, right? But if you're not physically able to get to it.
well, it's not developable according to this.
No, just from a tax purpose, right? So if you have 4 acres and you have frontage for 2 lots, you're going to be taxed extra because you can have a second lot there.
Even if it's under a tax-protected status?
Oh, I don't know.
Like
It
61,
could be.
but in this case, 40.
You got an agriculture or 61, you gotta have at least 5 acres.
Yeah. So my question would be if, so this property has been put in this district, it's the responsibility of kind of keeping it in a natural state has been given to the town, we think.
Yes,
So
that's, we
if-
can, for $1.
If the Vogels,
That's who I think it
If.
is.
if they owned it now, and they have that property that fronts Coleman,
Yes,
and they wanted to sell both properties, it would then be kind of developable.
no, it's in perpetuity. That's what this is, in perpetuity.
And why do we think the Vogels might own it, though?
I believe
Well, he
that
does
they
own
do.
it. John Vogel owns it.
It does,
How do
okay.
you know that?
Because I just looked
He
up
just looked
the,
up.
But you haven't found the deed to
I don't
the paper
have the
trail.
actual deed.
So what did you find?
just that it's owned by John Vogel.
And I believe,
It's like it's a Massachusetts GIS system, so it's like the one we have, but it covers the whole state. So it gives you property owners and information on the property.
So it really just owns it for
Right.
having extra land.
So,
yeah,
just-
they use it and they can do
Right.
what they want agriculturally
Right.
to it. They can dig a pond, they can,
Right. I mean, they have
it's
animals.
very extensive what they can do.
So just a summary for my own sake. There was in 1990 an article passed that resulted in a zoning bylaw that would create an agricultural or agricultural and horticultural restriction. And so
Preservation
far,
Preservation District.
agricultural preservation district.
Yeah,
And so far, to the best of our knowledge, there's only been 2 parcels.
That's correct.
That's the Baruki parcel and the Garrick now Vogel parcel.
I believe so.
And so the only thing would be for us to be sure, anybody who's involved with development at all, that if either of those parcels came up with any kind of development proposal, that these other restrictions would apply.
Well, they are-
Somebody's got to know about it.
According to the original thing, though, they're allowed to. They can apply to put,
To build
to
on
build
it.
there.
Yeah,
They have to get,
Follow the cluster requirements.
yes.
they have to submit a cluster plan, a regular development plan, and they have to get a special permit from the
Yeah, it's on
planning
the
board to
second
do all
page,
this.
major residential development. Yep.
Okay.
I
So
see.
really, all we need to know is that those 2 parcels and the owners of such need to follow these rules
Yeah.
if development happens.
Yeah.
And I believe that for the Baruki property, the reason that a subdivision and a cluster development plans were put on paper was to determine a value. How much, what would be the value of these 59 acres
Right.
if there was a standard subdivision proposal presented, or if a cluster division was presented. That's what establishes value. And that's why I believe it was done to establish value. I don't believe that Chester has any interest in doing anything with it other than farming.
Right.
And I don't know, I won't speculate on what he's going to do with it or might do with it.
Or his heirs. And whomever he is, he will again pass on at some point.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So the next steps from my standpoint are to be sure the planning board knows about this, to be sure the zoning board knows about this, to be sure they're in our zoning bylaws. Anything else we need to do?
So we have 2 properties, right? And we don't know how many there could be unless you've gone through every special town meeting
Well, I've
since
done,
1990.
I've done quite a bit since 1990, and I've been pretty involved in town government in various capacities, and I never missed too many town meetings. So it's my opinion that
This is it.
these are the only 2.
Okay.
Because before that, there was the actual APR that came into play,
Yes,
the ag preservation restriction, which is what our farm did,
yeah.
and that was in 1981-ish, maybe? So it was before these things, it was in the 80s, us, Tom Cross, the Shields, that we were putting our land into the APR from the state.
And that was up on Glendale, way up on Glendale, the farms up there,
Raymond's?
Raymond's. I think the Searle Farm has
Searle Farm, too.
has an APR on
Yeah,
it.
so, but a lot of that, all I'm saying is that it's interesting because it's confusing terminology because that's APR too, but it was the state program.
And sold. There
Right.
was
Right.
money.
And the town actually had to chip in some money toward it, I believe, as well.
20%, I think.
And then that was APR, and that happened though like in the early 80s, and so here we are in 1990 with this other,
Which is odd because there's no,
it's kind of weird.
like you said, there's really no monetary exchange or benefit for the agricultural preservation district versus the APR.
I think there is though, because I bet you this came about after, the availability of APR, because people could get a seemingly APR type of protection with the ability to, at some point down the road, at least have some avenue of building and,
Well, it talks about the ability to put up Christmas trees, to do a Christmas tree farm, was one of the...
Can't that happen in a state APR though? Can't you do Christmas tree farms
Yeah,
in a
it's
state
gonna be,
APR?
yeah.
I think this very much gives people the out at some point, whether it's yourself or your generations
Your
down the
heirs.
line to,
Right,
if
whereas...
no one wants to farm, you could get a special permit and try to,
Whereas the original state APR doesn't really give you that
Right, that's a
leeway. I
wrap.
mean, that is really, you've got to go to the legislature to get everything turned around. Whereas this, because they do talk about site standards and cluster development, it gives somebody, like you say, sort of a local version of the APR to allow them to eventually, a generation or two down the line, perhaps develop it.
I guess my
Whereas-
question is like how tough does this want our zoning board to be with, if these special permit requests ever came to be, should we really hold a tough line with
That's your
X, Y, and
jurisdiction.
Z, or should we say, okay, if you get all your ducks in a row and you give us this plan and this plan, then go for it.
Well, if it falls, from my standpoint, I want to go with the letter of the law. And if the letter of the law is not clear to me, then I want a legal opinion. I don't want just a planning board or a zoning board to feel that there's wiggle room. That's how I believe is important, especially in a small town like this, that I think there's, just people know each other and that sort of thing. I really want to stay with what's written and what's documented. And if it's not clear, then I, as a member of the planning board, would want to get a legal opinion.
No, I mean, I have to go through it all. I mean, it seems like they lay out
Yeah.
a good list of things you have to submit and provide
Right.
evidence of X, Y, and Z to
Now,
be
when-
considered.
When I first heard about this or started looking into this, I asked our current chairperson of the planning board, his name is Paul Deeman, if he knew any of it, and he was not aware of this. Then I asked our past planning board chair, who's also a consultant on a periodic basis to the planning board, and that's John Furman, who works for BBH, which is a civil engineering firm. And they do a lot of consulting to our planning board, thank goodness, because they're quite knowledgeable about all this stuff. And John referenced Garrett Court. He said to me, I think this is part of it, of what it fell under. And I had an email from him, but I think I've subsequently deleted it, or I don't have it right now. I may have printed it somewhere. But anyway, he had some familiarity with this.
Right.
But yeah.
And at this point in time, though, any of the subdivisions that are coming up before the planning board, neither one are in
Well,
these
that's
locations,
the thing
right?
that made me a little anxious, because we've had two subdivisions come in the last several months that are both called farms, Guild Farm and Fisk Farm, and they're located off Pequot Road. And I'm comfortable from what we've learned that neither of them fall under the agricultural purpose. So we've gone ahead and followed what we think are the right guidelines in terms of frontage and width of road and sidewalk required and lighting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's where VBH is coming really, really good, because they provide point-by-point review of what they see as consistent with our bylaws or needs to be fixed.
So
Okay?
when I asked the question, are we aware of anyone who's violated either of these, the answer is no.
Yeah.
I have no knowledge of any violation.
Okay.
And do you?
And neither do I. The cornfield is still a cornfield. It's
Yeah, okay.
been that way for years.
So one thing it does affect, and you may want to send it to the building inspector, is structures in proximity to
Okay.
the agricultural preservation district.
On Garrett Court, right?
Well, for instance, I just measured from, appears to be a shed to the property, and it's about 25 feet. It needs to be a 50-foot buffer.
Okay.
So the bylaw says any structure, all right? So a shed, a permittable shed, I think, is considered a permanent structure. It's just something to be aware of, right? So when he's reviewing a permit and he's looking at setbacks, this setback is different than probably any other setback in town, right? It's 50 feet.
Right.
So,
Well, and what do we do now, and to the extent that Lucy has or will file this
Yeah.
officially, to the extent that we didn't know that this existed, and there's some bylaw that exists now that is totally different, how do we reconcile
Well,
the two?
The planning board meeting that I attended, the question came up, should this be reviewed by Pioneer Valley Planning Commission?
Should be reviewed by a lawyer.
Well, I agree with that.
Realistically, I mean, before we send it to a consultant from
Well,
a town perspective, we want to have
That's,
legal review,
I'm
right?
with you on that, Mike, every time. What can I say? I don't know if I
Yeah.
do know the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission there's an arrangement with our planning board, comes out of the planning board fees that are collected, et cetera. And, so maybe the planning board will suggest that it go to select board to say,
Town council.
town council, could you look at this? So I am going to have to miss the early September planning board meeting. I kind of want to be there, so I'm going to suggest, not that you have to approve this or anything, but I'm going to ask Paul if he could put this on an agenda item for a little bit later so that I could be present for it. And I don't think it's an urgency at all, you know what I mean, in the sense of,
no, if we've had it since 1990, I guess. it's
and I don't think
urgency.
there's any kind of surveying going on in these properties right now. Okay.
And is there anything wrong with Lucy posting this then now? I mean,
In my
finally.
opinion, she has to make her own decision. That's her job, and she now knows about it. How can she possibly say no?
Right. Plus, once posted, it does raise the question when reviewing, right?
Yeah. What's-
So, they always say ignorance of the law is no reason not to follow it, but at least now, there can be no ignorance of the regulation, and
Right.
it really affects, 20 properties, 30 properties, right, in those areas, but still, having it out there is important,
Well-
and someone may see this and say, I would like to do that.
That's
with my property,"
exactly right.
So unless you get it out there,
Yep. Story
nobody's
of
gonna
our
know.
lives, Mike, isn't it? Aren't we finding a lot of stuff in the master plan that we wished it was out there a little bit? So if that happens, I'll let you know. Hopefully you can.
Whenever.
awesome.
Well, thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Research, wow.
I will leave this
Some deep
with you.
research.
I only did
Sherlock
one.
Holmes of Southampton.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so this, I'm going to put this all together. I've got multiple copies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that okay? If I-
It almost feel,
here's another copy of this.
Okay, and those are both for your records.
dropped off the face of the earth.
And I believe this is the vote
I mean, it
property
did.
here.
But like I was
Those
just,
things
On
did.
one of the
Right.
big maps, it shows that this
Yeah, 3
is
years
a
apart.
pathway
Coincidence or a
into
cover-up?
this property.
How'd that work?
but I mean, Garrett Court, for instance,
This
it
is
is
the
built
one
with
with
the
the
50-foot
ducks.
buffer.
Yeah,
Most of the
I don't
houses,
know
right?
which
And someone who
ducks.
bought it is gonna,
My
they're
friend's
gonna put a shed
John
in there,
Jay.
right? Because
Jonathan
He
J.
lives right next door to
just
Bubbles.
50
So
feet
which
is a
one
large
is he?
buffer. For any property.
He's the second house on
Right.
on Coleman Road.
Is it 33? He's this one?
No, I
No. Where's Coleman?
Well, anyway.
Coleman, where's Coleman?
Well, we should probably move on without
Anyway.
on that, yeah. Okay.
pick out an easy one to give me to research.
Only the hard ones. That's all you get, Barbara. The easy ones, somebody else can take care of. You're the one that's good at these. Thank
No
you.
good
care.
deed goes unpunished.
Thank you.
Proving your mettle.
Very much. He's got a big,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know where John is.
I think I'm gonna go home and think of more.
Thanks very much, Barbara.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just gonna drag this a little bit. Thank you. All right, so what chapter?
There we go.
I got
Good night.
Or we can just please.
Good night, Barbara, thank you.
We actually finished 3, the cultural craziness.
I do, however, have a quick report on something I said I'd follow up on
Okay.
chapter 3, and it can be very short.
And we had a couple ones, I think, that we wanted to just double back. We got ourselves, and I think none of us had our copy of the plan with us last time. We got into the whole issue about the scenic views in town.
Yes.
There was something on there that
Yes.
we couldn't remember, and then all of a sudden, after the meeting, Christina said, "Oh, it's actually page 51 or whatever of the plan." So it did outline what the scenic views are at that point in time, the various places, which include off of Glendale Road, the Ty Carmody Reservoir, Coleman Road view of Mount Tom, Gun Road view, Cook Road access, and Pleasant Street, and Swanson Cummers view, which I don't think I know where that is. So those were ones that had been outlined in the thing. So I think
So it was scenic?
yeah,
Scenic view.
Oh.
it's in the in section 3 there somewhere. We've got some notes in there somewhere for this. Go up to 3. You're in, yeah. Go back. Something about the protection status. There's the scenic highways. Yeah, right there. Right, we had it 322I. Signage on roads designated as
Yeah.
scenic.
Okay.
And then there was another one too about protecting the scenic roads, which I think is a couple more down. Yeah.
Protection
Yeah,
status.
4C. Yeah.
Okay.
So those we thought should be combined. I think that was our note, and then we're trying to remember what the scenic roads really were.
Okay. Do we want to review and rank those?
Okay.
I guess we didn't do that, I think, because we wanted to,
We just put pending, yeah.
yeah, so we could, whatever. I think this, we're not getting many no's on all of this. We're going to end up with a lot of yeses here. I don't know how we're going to get a lot of this down. But, I mean, the scenic roads actually do theoretically exist, and there is some measure of protection that is supposed to be enforced in terms of cutting down trees and so forth along those areas. Again, whether that's known.
Right.
Well, that becomes
Right.
the question.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in a
policing all
way,
this?
it seems like it probably ought to be looked at.
I think we should rank it, and I think we should rank it as specific and measurable, attainable, relevant, usual time-bound thing, inclusive and equitable, because I think it's really important.
Well, and if you do refer back to, for me, it's page 52 in the plan. It talks about the state legislature approved Chapter 67 back in 1973, authorizing cities and towns to designate certain roads as scenic roads. So in 1974, the town voted and approved at annual town meeting the designation of 5 roads as scenic, as permitted by the state act. So
But where's the
This is really-
signage?
there isn't any, I don't believe, to my knowledge. I can't think of any.
Select board needs to find it.
So I think
The money
that's,
to the signage.
yeah, so I mean, so these are the ones, the East Street from College Highway
There's one I'm going
to the Manhattan River Bridge, Rattle Hill Road, Russellville Road. So this, see, a little bit, this sounds even a little bit,
Different.
East Street from where?
it's a little fuzzier than here. Okay, it says here, so these 5 that have been approved, okay, so East Street from College Highway to the Manhattan River Bridge, so the center of town essentially.
Yeah.
Rattle Hill Road, Russellville Road from Red Brook to the Westfield line.
Okay.
Okay, Cold Spring from Glendale to the Westhampton line, and Gun Road from Pleasant Street to College Highway. Shortly thereafter, the state legislature passed MGL Chapter 40, 15C, Scenic Roads Designations, Improvements, and Fines. 3 roads in Southampton have been designated under this law: Manhattan Road, Maple Street, and Mountain Road. So there's 3 more. So then it goes on to talk about semi-protection. The legislature requires protection of these roads. Consent from the planning board is required before any repair, maintenance, reconstruction, or paving work is completed on these designated roads. In addition, work completed on the road shall not involve the cutting/removal of trees or tearing down, destruction of stone walls. A public hearing is required before a planning board decision, and work on the roads can commence. Under Chapter 40, Section 15, communities have the ability to pass a local bylaw to fine violators no more than $300. It does not appear that Southampton has adopted this local bylaw. But if
No, we have non-criminal ticketing, which what would be what it falls under. And so you need a line in non-criminal ticketing for that.
But, I mean, there is no signage for sure.
What page are you looking at?
52 for me,
52 on
somewhere in that neighborhood under Scenic Views and Scenic Roads, yeah. So there's at least 5 plus 6, there's at least 8 things that have been passed through the state legislature that designate scenic.
Now, are those considered, those are zoning bylaws? Or are they just town bylaws?
I would guess the designation characteristics would be like a town bylaw.
I would think a town
But then
bylaw.
this-
It's not really zoning, I don't think.
I just didn't know if there's any language, right? Because that brings up enforcement, right? So zoning bylaw, planning board related bylaws, those should be enforced by the
Well,
building commissioner.
public hearing required before the planning board, so for that's part of the enforcement part. I guess we might have to go
It
back.
covers trees and everything, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, more than just construction.
Well, I got news for you. I live right on the corner of Cold
Yeah.
Spring and Glendale, and I walked the
Don't
whole
cut a
thing
tree.
at 7 o'clock this morning. The bugs were all over me. And there's brand new trees down right next to the property that Garska is going to be building on, right on the new conservation land side. There's like 6 big trees that have been taken down. Probably wisely, because I'm thinking I don't know, were they taken down by the power company from the standpoint of potential falls? And I don't think it came before the planning board to get approval for that.
Tree trimming?
No, whole trees. Right.
Well, so with tree, there's 2 different avenues. If it's a private property tree, we go to the homeowner. If it's a town taking tree, we usually advise the town or the superintendent that we'll be trimming or removals for.
So isn't there a buffer that is town property, even if it's, what is the number of feet?
It really varies by road. A lot of times it's, call it 8 to 10 feet on your property.
Okay.
Right, so go to your curb, come back 8 feet,
Yeah.
more than likely that's town taking.
I'm not big at measuring, but I would say it was within that 8 to 10 feet. And it is privately owned. It's owned by Ted Hendrick, as far as I know, right across the street from, you know where I'm talking about, the corner of Rattle
Rattle Hill
Hill,
and-
going up like this. It was right in that area there. Didn't strike me as a problem. It struck me as probably a safety thing as much as anything, although they look like big healthy trees. I don't really know.
On the Rattle Hill side or on Ted Hendrick's side?
On the Hendrick side, yeah. So more about what is known, who's enforcing these things. Are we a town of citizen police people that we have to bring these things to someone's attention?
You know, I don't know with this one, right, because you didn't establish, when you have the planning board involved, right, which to me leads it to be a building commissioner enforcement item, just like any other zoning
Right,
or
right.
building bylaw, but
Or
that's
the
just
tree
my
warden.
opinion. Or the tree warden, but on the same token, the tree warden's not necessarily responsible for what the land is designated at or the use of the land.
Right.
So this
Right.
does come right back to the use of the property.
Right, but if this is within that buffer zone of the road, it's town land, I don't know if that's the town, that's not necessarily the building inspector. They're, right?
No, they're
looking-
responsible
it's the
for any
building inspector.
zoning enforcement
He's our
type of issue.
enforcer, yeah.
Zoning
he's
as it relates to private property, I mean, they're
Well,
responsible
it's-
for
it's-
zoning for
Here's the
the
deal,
town?
the town never gives you a tax break when they take a little bit of your right of way, right? You still own the property, they just really own the property, right? Because you can plant flowers there, you can plant trees
Right.
there, but if the town wants them, they're just gonna take them, take the property, widen the road, that type of thing.
Right. So I guess I'm wondering, in the example of these trees, who ordered the cutting of the trees, the town or the property owner?
Don't know.
So I think that if the town did, I don't see the building inspector getting involved. That'd be like
But if it's,
watching himself or.
so he's in charge of enforcement of zoning bylaws, and you do have to watch yourselves, right?
Mhm.
Because you build a new police and fire complex in this town, it needs to be inspected. It more than likely would not be inspected by the inspector here. He would defer to an alternate or have a state inspector come in just to remove conflict there. But in general, when you do a project in town, you pull a building permit.
You have to.
You don't pay, right? Because
Yeah.
it really just goes in a giant circle, right, with the money.
Even the town
The
doesn't.
town doesn't pay.
Gotta pay
Private
municipal, yeah.
pays.
Right, private pays, but you still need it inspected. Sometimes put it this way, we inspect the school building, right? Every year, there's health, fire department, building department walkthroughs for inspections. So you do enforce upon yourselves.
Yeah.
I can see that, I just can't see the building inspector
The zoning, the
monitoring
zoning,
that strip of land beside the road.
the zoning enforcement officer, right?
I don't think
Which we
there's
don't-
anybody else. There's only our building
Right,
inspector.
right.
We don't have
In
a zoning
any
enforcement.
town, it's a zoning enforcement officer. That person is generally the building
And
commissioner.
that's who we have in our town.
They're the liaison to your planning board, they're the liaison to your setbacks and all those other
Yeah,
types
so
of
people
questions. People who want to build something have a representative that can meet them in the field to talk about
Right.
a lot of those
I'm
things.
tempted, just because I'm a citizen that lives right down the street, just to call the highway department and just say to them, is this something you guys took down? I'm just interested. What happened? Sure.
It could have been a utility, depending on the trees,
Right.
danger trees.
They are doing a lot.
And they are, they're being very proactive, they're looking for trees, I know from personal experience.
So they've done a lot of work in our neighborhood.
Right, and they'll take it down rather than have it fall on the power line, they'll pay for it and everything. But I don't know if the town gets involved, even if it's within that 8-foot.
Just
The
general
utility company
advisory
comes, says,
inspection.
we should take this tree down because it looks like it's damaged and it's fragile and it should come down. The property owner says, yeah, you take it down, great.
But I think they do
Sounds
it with the
like-
knowledge of the town. I don't think.
Well, I called Mike
That's
actually
what I
one day
know.
about something that was across the street from where my son lives, and he put a request in to have your tree people look at it, because it was going to, my son said, maybe it's going to fall on a power line. He didn't know for sure. Somebody else has to look. I don't know what they ended up doing with it, but, so that's sort of a citizen's responsibility to be kind of aware of that kind of thing, or else they're going to lose power in the middle of a snowstorm.
Right.
Because,
That's my loss.
100%.
But anyway,
So like towns like Amherst, for instance, they have a tree commission, so we can't cut a tree in that town without presenting a plan for approval.
Well, right, that's what I feel we're talking about, larger towns have more boards, more enforcement, but small towns, does the left know what the right's doing? I think that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
well, and this is.
We have these things on the books, but who's watching?
Well-
Who knows?
Yeah, and that's just it. I
Well,
mean, this one, it says that
who knows?
it doesn't
It's the
appear that
first thing.
Southampton adopted this bylaw, which the bylaw, I mean, the approval
Another
in 1974, town vote, town meeting, yes, 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 okay? But the bylaw, which was under Chapter 40, Section 15, is
Never passed.
work completed on these roads, okay, shall not involve the cutting, removal of trees, or the tearing down, destruction of stone walls. A public hearing is required before planning board decision, and work on the roads can commence. So my question would be, is this something that maybe as a bylaw we should bring forth?
But it says here, it does not appear that Southampton adopted this bylaw.
Yeah, but I mean, did
Do
it
we
even,
want one?
did it
Do
even
we
get
want
forward?
one?
Did it even get
That's the
forward? Is
question.
that our
That's the
recommendation that
whole
maybe
thing.
we should have one? I don't know. But I mean, we don't know, it doesn't mean, to me, given what we've just heard from Barbara, it doesn't mean that it got ever presented at town meeting and got rejected, or it just fell through the cracks, period. When you say it's not been adopted, it doesn't tell me that it got voted down, it just tells me that
It didn't come up.
who knows whether it
Yeah.
even came up. So again, unless you go back to God knows whatever town meeting
Well,
to figure that out, you don't know. But I mean, is this a bylaw?
Marla
that-
is she's ready for her second.
So don't forget what I told you several
She does have
meetings
every-
ago, that the planning board has been doing proposed bylaw revisions that will then have to go to town meeting.
Yeah.
And they got waylaid by the marijuana thing, and they got waylaid by this and waylaid by that. So I'm asking for another copy of the current revisions, and I'll see if anything like that's in there. It hasn't finished through the planning board, so it's not too late.
Right.
Then eventually we have to go to a town meeting, along with all the other bylaw reviews. They're going to take town meeting, 15 hours, right, to go through. It's going to be
More like
crazy.
15 days.
15 days, yeah.
But I mean, this is one where I think it ought to come to the attention of somebody,
Yeah.
whether it's,
Yeah.
planning board or somebody, to even know these couple paragraphs and what's been designated.
I mean, all of this has been done by word of mouth. We have not documented the other bylaw that was never,
We've got
that
it
was
in our,
passed and
we've got
never
it
found
in our
its way
minutes.
into the bylaw. We've never documented in writing and sent it to anyone, this and that one, and shouldn't we do that?
Well, the select board is aware of the agricultural preservation, because we talked about that one specifically in the
Yeah.
last report out.
Yeah, but
But not to what we found out.
Not to the details,
No.
right? We did make them aware, and I think I used the statement, we're finding, I think I used plural, right? Like more than one, where bylaws or things were started or completed, but never enforced, never.
But I bet you
incorporated.
people would be very surprised to know that we've actually, at town meeting, 30-some years ago, approved these scenic roads.
That's right. And I've been in other towns where you see the sign,
Yeah.
scenic road.
Right.
You've seen them, right?
So is this something that should be brought up to whom? Is it to the highway department, the select board, Concom?
Well, if it came before the select board, what would select board do? They would say to the town administrator, look into this.
Well, it's their road too, right? So it's not necessarily designating the private property, it's designating the right of travel as scenic.
And the
So I would think it would go to the town, subsequently the highway, but it would be up to the town's discretion to appropriate funding for
I guess my
signage
concern
and
is for
enforce.
all the things that we find, the fact that they fell through the cracks, that we should take the initiative to document it in writing, because...
Over and above our minutes,
Fall through the
Francine?
cracks again.
Pardon?
Over and above our minutes, like a letter to the
Well, I
select board?
guess, I'm thinking, I think it needs to be brought up, because otherwise, 30 years from now, they say, oh, remember that MPI group, they found this thing,
Yeah,
I heard.
We have
it was in the
signatures by
minutes,
attorney
but we-
generals that
Yes,
are in writing, and we
Yes.
still don't
yes.
have that.
But I mean, we don't know that, one would assume that there should be some bylaw on scenic roads, and
Right.
we don't have it in the general ones.
No.
Where it could be, we'd have to look and see if it's in some other
And
bylaw in some other
I'm going to
commission.
tell you something very strange. Someone said that the tax rate is higher if you live on a scenic road. And
Someone said that in one of our finance committee meetings.
yes, someone said that.
Like 4 years ago.
I don't know if it's true or not.
I remember, I heard East Street marked on there, and that's why I remember the conversation.
Yeah, we were at the same meeting, and I thought, how strange is that? Do I live on? Because I heard
I've never heard
Glendale
that.
Road. And
Looks like I
thought,
do.
I must live on a,
Right,
Well,
it
well, that's all
enhances
right.
your property value living on a scenic designated road, so therefore,
So we have to
If it
ask
does.
the chief assessor.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have a Board of
Yes, yeah.
Assessors meeting tomorrow, I'll ask.
Would you please?
I can't imagine that.
I can't imagine that, but I will ask.
But I guess,
I can't. Towns are looking
one
to
of the
squeeze
things
every
that outcome
dollar,
of this meeting, of this group,
Yeah.
when we report out, would be to document those kinds of things and make sure that
But I think something
it
like
gets
this,
to where it goes. needs to
when
be.
these are obvious things that had gotten at least through town meeting.
Right.
Right.
According to this, anyway. I mean, we'd have to, in 1974 is when we've got to find those meeting minutes.
I know someone who may have them. She has them back at the turn of the century.
So shall I ask her for the town?
Why not? Yeah.
If she's
Town meeting,
agreeable.
If she
Yeah.
would be willing.
Ask Barbara if she'll
told
be
her no
willing.
good
I-
goes
Like
unpunished.
the
Town meeting
Yes.
of what year was it,
She has the
1974?
documentation and the knowledge. as well.
About
1974.
scenic road designation.
Okay, I will definitely ask
See
her.
next door.
Because I think these are things that are specific enough that I think we ought to correct. I don't think we just, there's a lot of other stuff that's like, well,
Yeah,
if
the
they're-
bylaws,
if maybe not
specifically bylaws.
If we're here to implement, we should implement.
yeah, these things that came before the citizens, I think we should
Yeah.
Yes.
rectify the wrong, I guess, is my point.
Okay.
So,
And to Francine's point, or whoever said it, something in writing, so it doesn't just end
Yeah.
talked about here
Right.
and in the minutes and
It
then
gets-
forgotten
yeah.
again.
Right.
So with that, and
You can
I,
pass all the bylaws and everything you want, but if you don't implement them, they're just.
I will say this from experience with communicating with, for instance, select board, and it is different today, but if we do,
Better say that.
it's different today. But if I send a letter,
Yeah.
which I have done in the past,
I know.
I would expect it
Expect
to
an
be
answer.
discussed at the meeting in an answer, because we have done that numerous times, zero response,
Okay.
nothing. Specific questions, not read, not discussed at the meeting, and that was actually a personal concern of mine a couple of years ago, was you're communicating with the governing body in town, and they don't even recognize your concerns at a meeting,
Yeah.
right?
I sent a personal letter to the chair, a former chair of the select board, requesting specifically that it be read into the minutes, and I know for certain that it wasn't, nor acted on. Not that it was a super biggest issue, but it was a big oversight. So,
And a lot of, once again, a lot of cities and towns have, not to jump on the select board, two members here, but a lot of cities and towns have a sort of communications portion, right, where they talk about communications to them. We don't do that, right?
That is true.
well, throw it out. We've got some agnostic select board.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
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 Like,
So I'm happy to write a letter to
does
any
everybody,
group,
yeah,
any
'cause
board.
everybody doesn't, yeah.
Yeah.
So can I propose, based on what you're thinking about, that not right now, but that we go ahead and create a letter to the select board with some specific items in writing from the Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting saying this needs to be documented, we found these shortcomings, we need it to
And it
be...
needs to be resolved. I
Yeah.
mean, they really, these things have to find their way to the places where,
I'm happy to draft it as a first draft, but I want input from other people.
And we may, so like you said, draft it. We have 2 items.
Yeah.
we may find
We
more.
may find more in the next 2 weeks, right? So I think having the draft ready
Yeah.
and adding as needed, and then in the disbursement of the letter, sending to the main governing bodies and the
Yeah.
accessory governing bodies, because
Including...
once you know, you know. You can't say you don't, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I agree with Francine. If it's attorneys that I've worked with say, if you don't write it, it never happened.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so that kind of closes chapter 3.
No,
more
it
or less.
doesn't.
Does it? It doesn't?
wished.
Sorry.
You
I'm
wished.
sorry. Oh, I forgot. You wanted to rank that? Or you kind of did rank it for us, right?
We thought we were
did.
going on.
Oh, that particular one, you finished the ranking?
Well, I think,
This is what happens when you miss meetings.
yeah,
I know.
you kind of ranked it. We didn't
The
disagree
four
with
of us
you.
here.
No, I'm just going to quickly bring up something else.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, I don't have the actual strategy. Oh, yep, historic, cultural.
Yep.
Anyway, this regards the question of where are all our historical documents, artifacts, etc. I said I would look into this. We all had some suspicions about where things were. So we have them in about 5 different places. And some of you may know the Edwards Library holds a lot of historical pictures and documents, have them actively put on a website right now, and the funding for that was provided by CPA funds. Carol Goulet, who retired last year, is actually there on a very part-time basis doing that. It's going to be a while. And there's also a list, not read into anything, a typed list, that of what is in there, various scrapbooks, newspaper clippings, etc.
Is it a rolling upload? So for instance, if you went in today, would you see 2 things and then in a week you'd see more?
Yeah,
Okay.
right. And on top of that, you can, and I'm providing this in the minutes, there's a link through southamptonlibrary.org for, it's called Historical Resources of Southampton. You can go there, you can look, it's really cool. There's a lot there. I urge you to do that. Plus, if you're doing research and you really want to look at stuff, you can borrow a thumb drive. You can't take it out of the library, but you can borrow a thumb drive, plug it into your own whatever laptop, grab stuff from there based on it's an item available for people, but they're protecting that thumb drive for good reasons. That's the Edwards Library. We have 2 commissions. We've been through this before. 2 historical bodies. One is the Southampton Historical Society and the Southampton Historical Commission, which is an elected body. Christina's a member of that, and she's
I'm on the
talked
society.
before. And you are on, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, you are on the society, which is a private, nonprofit 501(c)(3) organization. And I actually found myself at a couple meetings recently of that. And it owns and maintains the Clark Chapman House and its contents and furniture. I got this from Bob Koza. And you can maybe find this out, Chris. Do they ever scan any of their documents in case the whole place went up in flames? Number one. And number two, is there an inventory of the hard artifacts? Whatever, the pictures.
At Clark Chapman.
At Clark Chapman House. And from what I understand, funding is strictly through dues and periodic fundraising events. Is that right?
As far as you know.
And they are not, as a body, they are not running Celebrate Southampton, but there's a lot of crossover in the group. Are they consider themselves the coordinators of Celebrate
The
Southampton?
Historical Society is.
They are? Oh, okay, I misunderstood that.
As far as I know. Yeah.
Oh, so
Not the
they
commission,
is.
but the Historical Society is the one planning Celebrate Southampton,
Okay, okay.
as far as I know.
So my questions were just, what's happening to those artifacts if something happened?
So you want to know if there's inventory.
Inventory, and if there's
Well, there's
some
two curators, Annie Searle and Heidi Corbett. So I'm assuming
Okay,
there is some level of inventory, but I could find that out.
Heidi. Oh, was that woman that
Corbett.
was C-O-R?
B-E-T-T.
Okay, she was at that recent meeting that I was sitting at.
Annie Searle.
And I got Annie Searle, okay. Okay, and then there's a small display of historical items right here in the town hall, weights and measures, you've all seen it right outside the select board room. And finally, Judith Miller Conlon, along with another man named Bill Bray in town, had done a pretty good assessment of what was held in the First Congregational Church of Southampton. And they feel like they do not have a tremendous amount of non-written historical artifacts. The greatest prize is the Yale diploma of Reverend Judd, Jonathan Judd, historical person in Western Massachusetts. He graduated from Yale. There's other things that are sort of church-specific, communion plates, goblets, etc. They also have a melodeon that was used in the 1800s. Very cool.
A melodeon?
It's a German, I looked it up, it's a German keyboard kind of instrument.
And I think a lot of the church records, if I'm not mistaken, are also part of what has been scanned for the library.
Oh, I didn't know that,
I'm
okay.
thinking that, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
I think some of the documents that the library now has came from the church.
All right, so I'm going to read this document into our minutes that I presented, this part. Barbara LaFillion brought up the question of whether there was an oral history project sponsored by a former librarian whose name was Carol Freeborn, and I cannot find anything about that. Don't know what. The question was asked Ted Hendrick, but then we better never lose Ted Hendrick because he's walking his book. Artifact. That's all I have to report on that.
Perfect. So, chapter 4.
I moved it. No, I won't say that.
Give us a few more minutes.
Yeah.
But we had done some on chapter 4. I think this is when we had started, when the time that Christina wasn't here, we jumped to chapter 4 because we didn't want to do the historical one without her. And so we did a dab in there, but we didn't get very far, I don't think, in that one.
Chapter 4, strategy 4-4B, work with farmers and develop marketing materials to promote agriculture in Southampton.
We've got the whatchamacallit.
Ag commission?
We've got the farm brochure.
Here's the brochure.
We've already got the, I have it. Yeah, we've already got this.
Right.
This has got 13 or so farms and what they do and a map of where they are. That's already been done, and that's the Ag Commission did that themselves, I think, at their own cost. A couple years ago.
So I would ask the question, so if we have an agricultural commission today, what's the purpose of pursuing this if there's a group that's pursuing it already? Right? Like, are we working this twice? If they're working it today, they're doing brochures, they're doing, there's craft fairs, there's events going on at these farms, there's advertisement going on. Are we duplicating efforts here by including this one?
Well, we know But she does do the thing in the first week in
To
September,
do the
right?
craft fair, yeah.
But do they do it for them only, or do they invite other farms to represent, to put products out? Do you know?
It's not necessarily farm product, it's really a craft
It's for crafts on
vendor fair. I mean, from what I saw last year, there were no other
Yeah, I don't remember food.
farms represented there. It was, no,
Okay.
it was just orchards.
Does Celebrate Southampton, have they invited farms? to
Yes,
put
I mean,
stands out?
that's been the purpose of this, the theme of Celebrate Southampton this year has been agriculture, and thus far, there's only like 3 or 4 that are maybe going to appear. It's conflicting with a lot of things in terms of harvest and Eastern States Exposition and umpteen million other things. And so there's a couple that will be there for sure, but not anywhere near what we had hoped, because there's not a lot of farms around, but we'll have a few little animals. The barnyard will be there, thanks to both, hello, who are those guys? Touchette's, blanking their farm name, and Fletcher's are going to have some more animals there, and then I think Round Hill Orchard and somebody else. One of the other ones are going to be there. So 3 or 4 are going to be there. But yeah.
So in answer to your question, Mike, we've got Ag Commission working on promotion. We've got the people that are doing Celebrate Southampton. We have some small events.
And Celebrate Southampton this year, I mean, this theme this year is agriculture, so next year it can be something else. So this just happens to be this year. So, you know,
Do we put it as ongoing? I'm just asking if the process is, if they're engaged in the process, do we put it as ongoing? Because it is, right?
well, and you guys have got the Cabot weekend coming up in October or something, right? So that's an open farm
Yeah.
event. I mean, there's things that are, it's not necessarily, shall we say, coordinated. I mean, it's like a 1 or 2 farm specific thing, so it's not like all the farms in Southampton are getting together to do something. I guess it's,
But would they
Is
ever?
that something that I think was envisioned by this?
I think that, well, the notion of the farm market and some of this other
Right.
stuff, farmer's market was kind of there, but I don't see that that's really,
Well, it makes it difficult because you have like farm destinations. Like we talk about Machistas
Right.
or Outlook Farm
Sure.
or different places. Like
would go there. They're not going to pack up their stuff
Yeah.
and bring it to someplace else. I know, it's hard. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, are you thinking that these are sort of independent and autonomous from
Well, honestly,
the master
just-
plan, or?
just that one, like just as going down, right? Looking at that one,
Yeah.
knowing that there are events going on, like my wife and I go to events, right? We talk about
Yeah.
farms, a winery kind of falls
Sure.
under the farm.
Yeah.
They do a lot of promotion of events.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if there was nothing going on, it'd be something to put attention to, but that one specifically, I think it's,
Yeah, I wouldn't
It is
disagree with that. I mean, I don't know that it's absolutely urgent and relevant that we get involved in it, because it seems to the extent it exists, it's happening. All the pick-your-own fruit places, all last month, have been very active.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not that people don't know about them, I think.
the next one, establish a weekly farmer's market.
We talked about that.
I think that's, talks about priorities. I think it's a wonderful idea. I don't think it's likely to happen very soon.
Yeah,
We'd have to go back to those 13 farms.
yeah,
Right.
you'd have to see some level
It's
of
not
interest.
something we
Yeah.
can legislate.
You know,
It's almost going to be something, I'm kind of on a funny word, but organic. In other words, it's got to come from them.
that's right.
To want to do this. I don't think
They
anybody
have
can
to be
say, hey, we need a
convinced that
farmer's
it
market
works
in
for
town.
them.
You know,
Yeah.
they've got to see something that's going to be relevant and worthwhile for them, whether it's only just once a week or once every 2 weeks. I mean, there are certain farms I know that go from Westhampton over to the Easthampton farmer's market and so forth, but they're obviously getting enough,
For the
That's
volume there.
yeah, enough traffic to make it worthwhile, whereas here, you know,
That's right. And I patronize White House Farm for my plants and things like that up on Glendale, or off Glendale. And she's already established with the Florence Market in the Northampton.
Yeah, I've seen them in Northampton.
So I'm not saying, you know, how much can they do, you know? It's a lot of work to pack up a truck.
Well, there's a lot more
No,
traffic
that's
in
interesting,
those
because White House
places
is not
than
even
there
on
would-
here.
That's right. So it would have to be, I agree with Chris, it would have to be sort of like from them, they have to say, we need something local.
Yeah.
And as a Southampton resident, I can go to Florence, I can go to Northampton, I can go to Westhampton and Easthampton.
I think maybe our only responsibility is to make them aware that the MPI,
Yeah.
the citizenry thought this would be a good idea. And they can say, all right, we'll pursue it or not.
Yeah.
Did you
Can't
bring that up when you
legislate.
visited the
And
Ag
I
Commission?
think, yeah.
It's just an awareness thing. Maybe they
Right,
consider it.
right, yeah, and the comment basically was, and it was only from one of the people that was there, was, we've already got our own established places. Why would we want to go somewhere else? People come to us,
But I think that's true of any farm. So, I mean, I could make the argument that if you're all together in one spot, you're going to have ancillary sales that you won't get
Yeah.
people. But that's, again, I think we make them aware that the MPI, the citizenry had an interest in this, and they pursue it or they don't.
So should we rank it?
Who's White House? They're not even on our
Should we
list.
what?
Rank it low, maybe.
No, they're not. I don't know why. Who owns that?
So would it not be
I would-
considered
I would-
relevant?
I would ask them if it's
She's
relevant,
coming
you
to
know?
celebrate something.
Right. Because as it's
That's
worded,
right,
as it's
yeah.
worded, it doesn't say notify the farmers, it says do it.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I would say
I've
it's
heard her name
not
coming to the-
very relevant.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, it is specific, it's measurable.
Attainable was really up to them again.
Time bound,
It's always an interesting one.
inclusive. Yeah.
It's by
Equitable.
self-choice, yes. Equitable, it could be, yes.
Does it become inequitable if you expect someone with a market to travel to a different market?
That's
I'd
why
have
I
to
said
ask the
it could
question,
be.
right? 'Cause then you're limiting what you bring.
Yeah.
You're limiting their goods. I mean, you're participating,
Yeah.
right? And their market is still open, but, you know.
That's a tough one. All right.
Okay.
Town-owned community garden. It's specific,
Yeah, people have asked whether we have a community garden in town. I know.
it's measurable. Is it attainable? I mean, we do own a lot of,
We own a lot of
Property.
land.
A lot of
yeah.
land. I would think it could be attainable. I mean,
Yeah.
is it relevant?
Depends on who you talk to. I mean, we have property that we can't grow anything because we have so many trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
When you
So,
live on a scenic road, you can't cut them down.
I mean, I might be interested in a community, in a location in a sunny spot, that'd be great.
But you have to, relevant though, the irony of we still believe ourselves to be a farm rural community and we're talking about community gardens.
I hear you.
Right.
But there are people who live in, the apartments and things like that
Sure,
in town that don't have access.
Exactly.
Really, I think that's what they
Yeah.
were designed for, non-property
Yeah.
owners.
Well, I guess to my point, I don't think
Well,
we
there's-
are really a rural community.
There's some good land right next to Strawberry Manor.
Oh,
There are places that we could have.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got a water preservation district on on Pomeroy Meadow with this whole area there
yeah,
that
right out in the
they're
sun.
mowing it,
Yep.
for gosh sake, right in the sun. Too bad that couldn't at least be a few community gardens. Yeah.
I mean, it's another thing, I mean, the school property's tough, but when I was in
And, yeah,
middle school, I think we had a small school garden, right? And you
Yeah.
pick your
Yeah,
10
good
tomatoes
for
and you
kids.
use them in the pizza sauce, or whatever they're doing, right? But I mean, we did do that.
I think
Yeah.
it's really important for school children
Yeah,
to
no, I do
grow
too.
things.
I
I
do too.
certainly had a garden when I was a kid.
yeah. I'm just thinking.
So
of
who do we get to
things you
start
could-
that?
You could use some for the community cupboard. You could use some of the produce for the school
Sure.
lunch
So-
program.
Who gets this going? Is this the Ag Commission? Is that what is considered the body to get it going?
Doesn't
I
say.
think it's open space.
Opportunities for residents to become involved.
Yeah.
Identify appropriate locations. So, I mean, the town could, I guess to me, if the desire was there, right? If they were knocking on the door to the select board of, we want a community garden, the town has the ability to designate property for a community garden.
Totally.
But if
But if
the
nobody,
wheel's not squeaking, nobody's getting grease,
Right.
right?
Well, and to what extent do you flip that around and make it known that there was an interest in maybe having a community garden, and 10 years later, what's the current thinking about this? I mean,
Does it say there was interest?
Well,
And
how
I
did
just
it
ask
get
because
there,
some
you
of
know?
these I question, are they PVPC strategies or are they town residents?
Well, according to
Board member
what Christina
strategies.
had said, who was part of this originally, lots of ideas were thrown out, like lots of ideas, and
Yeah.
whether somebody said, wouldn't it be great if we had
So
community
there could
gardens?
have been
Right.
one person in
That's
that
right.
town,
That doesn't mean
you know,
there's a-
but it
And she
got-
said they
Town-wide
just plain got
interest.
incorporated into it.
Yeah.
I think
And that's
I
what
could see
makes
if
it
I was
so-
on that committee saying, yeah, wouldn't it be great to have a community garden? Because I've seen them in Northampton,
Sure.
I've seen them in England, they have these things called allotments, and they're very specifically defined spaces.
Yeah.
But it does take management. It
It does.
takes.
And it takes a lot of volunteer
You have
work.
to have
Take care of it.
water access, and you have to have guidelines, and you have to, somebody's got to be there in the middle of the night, to shoot the deer they're going to come by, and you should see my garden. So,
Well, then
But I think it's a good
community
idea.
gardens.
But how do you, I mean, how do you go about bringing things like this forward to get a sense of current citizens' desires about anything? I mean, how does it happen?
Citizens are, I mean, they're generally vocal. So I
A
always,
few of them are, yes.
I don't know, I always think like if you really want something from the town and you, like if you really want it, you'll bring it forward and ask the question, right? As a constituent, you'll ask. And I just,
It's not an accident or one or two very dedicated people that created community gardens in Northampton and Easthampton.
Right.
There's demand, and then that's when the volunteers come forward.
and a lot of those are, they're sort of residential demand, right? So take the one in Florence by the, is it the Elks?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, that one there, like,
Yeah, athletic
that's,
fields.
that's based off of the residents, you know, a block away in all those neighborhoods. They can't, they don't have space for gardens, but I'm assuming a lot of that, you know, moved to
Oh,
that.
by the American Legion there.
Yeah, right, like that's managed by the people who are close by that don't
Right.
have the space.
Hatfield is half the size of Southampton, isn't it? About, and they have community gardens.
So some residents up there in Hatfield,
Right, that's
the
interesting, because
trees.
they're more,
they're
More
very,
as
than we are.
rural, if
Yes.
not more so. Plenty of farm and.
Size-wise or population-wise?
Pardon?
It's like land-wise or
Population-wise.
Very farm community, and
I
yet
think
they have
you're probably
community
right, it's
gardens,
probably
so
about 3,000
I think that's
I
just to your
think they're
point.
about half the
you know.
size, yeah.
demand wood.
Like, I want fresh vegetables, but I go to a farm share.
Well, that's another point. I think it's a good point, that there didn't always used to be a farm share.
Right.
3,300 as of 2017.
Okay.
So now you can, if you want to pay for your farm share or share it with somebody else, you get fresh vegetables.
So we do, we buy the biggest one and we split it with another family.
You just
Great
put
deal.
it in.
$24, $26 a week,
It's a great deal.
14 pounds of vegetables, 13 pounds.
And from what I,
You go to Mountain View.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still go like
Yeah, we
that.
do that too, yeah.
The $1 something a pound for winter vegetables.
very cool.
Big deal.
All
We
right.
eat a lot of vegetables.
It's a good thing.
Yes.
Well, probably not the highest priority at the moment, I guess I would say.
I'm thinking so.
I mean,
Would
I'm
be-
sure if you had the people to take care of it, that,
Yeah.
you know, people would end up using it.
I think one of the ways to really gauge this is if the school department it. Like, if your kids grow them at school, and then as parents, you hear that and you want to, I mean,
Right.
something needs to spark it.
Yeah.
Does asking residents, hey, do you want this? I don't know, maybe it does if you catch the right ear, but you know, how do you sort of inject it and see if
Yeah.
it works? And like you said, kids should pick vegetables and know what they taste like,
It's true.
not what they
They
taste
do
like from the
have,
store.
I mean, you're talking about Palmer and Meadow Road, at least they have town water there.
That's true.
You probably get a bill.
Well-
Cemetery department gets a bill, you probably get a bill.
Really?
Community garden could probably get a bill.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Um,
All right.
Water quality education campaign, that's done. You know what? I don't think I ever got a response to my water department questions.
Speaking of responses.
Adopt low-impact development standards for stormwater management in the zoning, subdivision, and stormwater regulations. Well, it's specific.
We definitely have some stormwater
Didn't we just get
regulations.
something, yes?
Yeah, we do. And they are enforced, I will tell you right now, in terms of the proposals for the subdivisions, they have to address stormwater, whatever it is, runoff, or is there enough sand in the soil, and do they need those, what do they call these things, like drainage ditches?
Swales,
No, there's
What do they
another
call
word for it.
retention basins.
Retention basins, yeah.
Well, then,
Low impact development standards, I don't know if that's retention, it probably is retention based, but not
I think we've
built-
got it.
I mean, they're pretty restrictive in general.
Shall I
for
look into
development.
that in terms of the next meeting?
Yeah.
for planning, yeah.
Who's pretty restricted? I mean, like state regs or?
Well, if you have an active like conservation commission and planning board,
In the chapter.
if you do work in areas, sometimes they have mitigation areas, you need stormwater runoff, like
You do.
it's not,
I was just pointing out that this is.
it's not like they used to do up in Miller's Falls where they just sent everything in the river.
but
Like
then there's-
that's kind of done,
in this
right? So
chapter,
everything
chapter
goes through
4.
some sort of
Filtrating.
regulation tank or filtration method or retention basins or vernal pools
So-
that receive the water, grow some plants and sort of go dormant, go back, so.
I don't think we've done that either.
Well, I think this is, I mean, certainly the highway department's been very, very involved with having to abide by all sorts of state regulations and whatever.
Does- Does this include, I mean, this is, we're back to zoning again. If you're creating a development of 9 houses, let's say,
Some opportunities and challenges for.
it would include, there's regs, is that what we're talking about? Like,
Yeah, so these look like they're a little more stringent than what we have, just looking at some of the requirements here.
like rain garden restriction kind
Kind
of
of,
stuff?
yeah, so a rain garden is probably pretty close to
Yeah.
an added restriction, right? Some towns enforce them, some don't, but yeah, it's a great example.
So what are we saying here? That's very specific, but
Yeah.
yet it's not, because I don't know. Low impact development standards, is that like a typical term and anyone in this business knows what that means, or is that open to interpretation? My low impact standards are not the same as yours. The town has low impact standards, what does that mean? Are they, do
term
they
low
meet
impact-
state regs, minimum state regs,
I think they're,
or is that a term that's like above and
if you were
beyond
a
what's
civil
required by
engineer,
the
that would
state?
mean something
The
too.
term low-impact development refers to systems and practices that use or mimic natural processes, like rain gardens, that result in the infiltration, evapotranspiration, or use of stormwater in order to protect water quality and associated aquatic habitat. So,
I think one example of that is, does the soil percolate fast, sand? I think that's an example that I've heard of in the planning board.
Right,
Or another example is, does it have an underground collection system that will then be run off in a safe direction away from wetlands?
Right, but my question is, and forgive me because it comes mostly from ignorance, but again, if you're thinking about developing a big piece of property for multiple dwellings, and you see these happen, and sometimes you'll see there's a retention pond built.
That's right.
And so is that required by DEP in the state, and this is above and beyond that? Or is
some
this
of the-
the same thing?
some of those are mitigation requirements. So if you are working in close proximity to some sort of specially designated site, sometimes you need to do mitigation efforts, build retention ponds, rain gardens, those types of things to,
It's in our zoning bylaws. Jim. I think there is something in the zoning bylaw. Whether it's called low impact, I don't know.
Yeah.
But why don't I find out about that? Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think this low impact development is a step above, right?
It sort of feels like.
So they talk about vegetated rooftops, which we don't require, rain barrels, permeable pavement, so all good things, but sort of a step above and beyond what we do today. So it would be something that would need to be adopted by the,
So I guess is it one of those things that's necessary? You know, is it going above and beyond to these levels necessary in this town for one reason or another? Or is it just another?
Well, it is necessary. It is really, because if you think about some of the developments
Right.
are big, beautiful houses that want gorgeous lawns, that want chemicals on those lawns to become beautiful lawns. Or they're abutting other properties. This came up at one of the planning board meetings where one of these farms that's being developed, the abutting property owner is concerned because she, over time, has watched runoff from the land even before it was developed onto her property, and she's aware of that. So there's standing water too long in the spring, she can't plant, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there is a lot of reason for that, this to be considered as. And she's rightfully, in my opinion, very concerned that this was going to be addressed for that development.
Especially, and it really is, especially any impact on wells. I don't have a well, but if I did, I would be very concerned what my neighbors are doing.
Yeah, exactly. And this will all be wells. This will not be town water in these places because it's... Wait a second.
Well, your neighbor
I'm not sure
too,
about that.
depending on where the aquifer is. Your neighbor could be 2 miles away too.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right.
I'll ask about this low impact
So
development standard.
I don't know how everyone feels, but I'd like to take a pause here because I feel like the next couple are going to be a little lengthy and it's a little late.
Sounds good. Maybe I can look into some of these so I have answers.
That's the thing, like I kind of want to go through some of these and refresh my
Yeah.
memory.
I think it's helpful to go back and look at some of the actual plan too, because
Right.
these things don't necessarily reflect some of the way
Yeah.
things are said sometimes. Just for note, in this chapter 4, just because I ran across it again, page 75, it talks again about the Ag Preservation District bylaw passed in 1990. Few residents and officials are aware that this bylaw is on the Southampton books, and the planning board has not actively encouraged developers to promote better subdivision development. The clustered bylaw could be an important tool for protecting open space and farmland, while still allowing for attractive residential development. A new type of bylaw that the town could consider adopting encourages open space protection through the approval not required development known as the Conservation Development Bylaw or Flexible Development Bylaw. So, and that's not even a strategy, it's just listed in here under the chapter on opportunities.
Common driveway, the flexible lot size.
Common driveway, yeah.
On page 75.
Yeah,
the-
flexible
like the
frontage requirements.
Second full paragraph.
Okay.
The third one.
Yeah.
And require a certain percentage to be permanently located
Yeah.
as open space. So I mean, I don't think that exists either, but we might just take a look. I'll take a look under state regs and see if I come across anything, just for curiosity.
Interesting.
See what,
The ones who, of our age group, are sitting here with highlighted. And these two,
I like paper.
Trying to save the trees.
We all went
That's
to graduate school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think there's, sometimes
So you got that,
this wasn't really.
highlighted on the computer.
Yeah, there you go. This wasn't actually, it didn't end up as being one of the goals or strategy, but it's there as an opportunity for the
Right.
town to sort of think about. And it's like, well, it's probably looked at it and got passed right over. So it's like, if we're looking at things, maybe there's something that we should be looking into too.
So, no, that's good, I like that.
okay, so
We'll
we'll go back
revisit.
to four.
Yeah.
Old business, we don't have any. New business.
Just a question, I guess. What do we think our time frame is? Because we're on chapter 4. We're getting to chapter 8 here eventually, and chapter 8,
Well,
before
8 was
that-
the energy, right?
No, 7 is the energy, 8 is the land use, I believe, right?
Okay.
8 is land use, energy, and then before that was public services and facilities. So that's number 6, and then before 5 was the mobility one. So in a way, some of the mobility, I think, with the sidewalks and stuff, I think we've tackled some of that. We know we've done some of that. I guess, for me, it's been almost a year since we've been sort of working on this. And I think Select Board at some point is going to want to know what we want to do from master plan's point of view. I mean, I think they're waiting for us to give them some clue as to what we think is important so that they can then set their priorities. Because I think Reenie's trying to push to help set some real goals and not just kind of react to everything as has been done over time, and to help us, sort of focus our attention and energy on 2 or 3 main goals that we really want to work at. And it just seems to me that we've got to get to a point where we can present something, and I don't want it to be next spring that we do that. I mean, I don't know, because to me, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, you know, we've talked a little bit about economic development. That came up as one of the things in the meeting at the select board. You know, people were suggesting that, but I mean, to me, land use is really the key, and all this affordable housing. You know, the greenway. I mean, all of those are big things.
So in a
how we are,
perfect world, I would suggest a roundtable discussion between us and the select board about what we review, right? Because there's items that'll stand out that you can say, today you need to work on, right? We don't need to rank it. We don't necessarily need to then go through the cost-benefit analysis. There are some, I think, whether opinion-based or majority-based by discussion, that we could say, you need to work on these. But to me, if you're looking for something actionable, that's probably the best way, because it gets the people in the room. With that said, 3 other members may have to do a little bit of reading in advance of that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Francine? I get the feeling that, you know, there's certainly more of a concerted effort to try and get a focus and get priorities established.
Well, yeah, and we'll establish the priorities.
You know, and I think there's a certain expectation that the master plan implementation committee is going to be helping to provide some of that direction.
But buried in here is that, I mean, they captured absolutely every utterance that anyone ever made at those meetings, and we're still trying to figure out really what it meant, but it doesn't fit in. I mean, from my point of view, I could look at the headings, and based on those headings, you know, and my own personal preference, pick out a couple of topics and say, I would think energy, you know, things like that. Would be on my priority list and looking ahead to the future of the town.
So if it's select board specific, right, you could almost exclude chapters 4 and 8. Historic and cultural resources and land use, right? Because because if they're planning board or zoning board related, chapter open space and natural resources and land use. Because the majority of those strategies are not related to the select board. Now, there's some involvement when it comes to going before the town, with their planning board, zoning board, conservation commission related.
Yeah, but I think you know, to the extent that we're going to be talking about any kind of affordable housing, and that to me is land use. I mean, there's very little land that we can find in town to do anything. If we really wanted to do something,
but we didn't even get to
housing,
chapter 8 yet.
I know, that's my point. So it's like, can we, you know, does anybody else feel that chapter 8 might be an important chapter over the next
In other words,
couple of
skipping
chapters?
up to there.
Skipping up to there and then coming back to those, I don't know.
What about this as a consideration? Because I agree with you.
I just feel like we're
forever. And we every single meeting, we sort of have a lot of reason to pick apart.
Well, we do it because of the way this is written. I mean, we
Right.
do bog ourselves down, that's true. But I mean, there's some weaknesses in this plan in terms of how it's been
What about
presented.
what about homework on our part? That we sort of give ourselves each some homework, that we go home and we take each chapter individually and we outline what we think are 3 or 4 major things in each chapter. Come back and compile those, and then come up with something and decide if we as a committee agree that that should be presented to the select
Like
board.
choice voting.
Yeah, call it whatever you want, but
Yeah.
that we come back and go to the select board and say, these are the things that we think need attention this year. Doesn't mean it would mean that the future wouldn't be other things, but
So
Is that
isn't that
too-
what we're doing right now?
Yeah,
though? I
but
mean,
we haven't.
We're going
limited
down a rabbit hole of, we're going to have just as much work.
These
we'll go through all
little,
the
this
chapters,
isn't
too.
getting us to, I
work
think,
isn't
where
gonna
we
be any
need to
shorter.
be.
Yeah,
We're
it's like-
evaluating each thing
Yeah.
that was identified.
Yeah, I mean,
My
I'm
thing
not,
That's an objective.
How many
but we're not-
strategies are there?
It's
Mike?
not getting us.
Enough.
So my
There's
thing
like
is, if
200.
if you said 200 strategies,
Yeah.
you know, it's good that some of them are very specific, but realistically, 160 of the 200 are they're just
Right, I
getting
think
bogged down in
we
these
can get it
really
down to
random
a
strategies.
few dozen maybe, if we
I
can
mean,
get it down that
realistically, what do
low.
we think?
So review-
Land preservation, infrastructure. Yes, that's a big topic, but
Right. One way to get them down is to
That's
look
kind of what we're
at
going
these
at
chapter
here.
headings.
That's what I said. I
Right,
think
right.
There's a
Land
handful
use,
of
energy,
major
these are
things.
things that are on people's mind. More so, not to diminish the others, but
public services.
you
and
could
facilities.
target what, because what affects people most
Yeah.
is what they pay their taxes for, again, land use,
Yeah.
energy, how can we save money?
Right. And I think, to the extent that there may be other things coming up, but I think for a while, this past year anyway, the focus has been on open space and that's fine, but it's, I don't know that we can continue to always just look at that. We've got to do more than that, I think.
Yeah.
And people have been in my ear about the greenway. It's like, why don't we still have
our
this
town's
greenway?
just coming to a big,
It's just like,
we're coming to a big crossroads
I
of,
think,
infrastructure.
Yeah.
Our town has to either
right.
take that step financially, which is a really big thing that needs to be thought about, and analysis has to be done if that's going to be a feasible thing for this town in coming years. We need to talk about our municipal buildings.
Public, yeah.
There's a handful of things like we really need to start addressing.
The senior
Yeah.
centers, affordable housing, there's all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
that's come up.
Demographics and housing, I think.
I think it's
drive.
huge.
I'm fine with that,
But
but just me, from where I sit today, looking at 2 select board members with 3 others, that today, right? And you've known that for weeks or months, right? So, and I'm fine with going through the chapters on a personal level and picking out like the top 3, right? The things that stick out to me, and we review it and we kind of review and rank, but the select board also doesn't need us to tell them that public safety or affordable housing needs to be pursued, because today.
I guess.
Right?
Well,
I'm just saying, right? If you know it's an issue, we brought
Are
it
we
up.
telling them what they already know is what you're saying? And
When I did my last report out, I brought up affordable housing and the number of units, and
Yeah.
I was met with silence. No, we should look into that. No, hey, I should take that into consideration. I got the, well, that's what developers do. Right? That's, and I can reword it and present it in a different way. But some of these are known issues,
Some of the
right?
things we have to do is come up with incentives for developers. Yes, developers are going to do that, but we have to incentivize them in some way to build affordable housing, to use smaller lots, to, those kind of.
Well, or to say that, in order to, I don't know, maybe a focus is on looking at zoning bylaws to establish parcels that are therefore more eligible for affordable housing. Maybe that's, nothing is disconnected. It's all it's all kind of tied together. So is that something where we're saying?
I think what the select board wanted, the intention of doing this whole exercise was to really reflect what the will of the people is. And
It's the same
unfortunately,
between-
this doesn't tell me, what are issues are more important to others. It's still left to us to decide.
The important issues in here are the same ones you talk about and the same ones that are known today, right? Open space and recreation. We do a lot of, from outside of this meeting, there's a lot of effort into that.
Sure.
Public safety, buildings, complex. Years, a decade plus worth of effort into that today. I'm fine with going through these and recognizing the top 3 per chapter and talking and voting and reviewing. But I think what you're going to find is that we're going to give you a list of a lot of things you already know and then maybe in the process too, and I'm okay with that. If it means trimming some of the smaller, the smaller strategies, the things that we talk about that don't necessarily, that realistically aren't going to go anywhere. Right? There are some we talk about, and we may spend 5 or 10 minutes on these.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
They're never going to get implemented, so do we focus on the bigger ones?
I think it's one of those things we got to continue. I think we should continue what we're doing,
Okay.
but at these meetings, if there's 15 strategies per chapter, I think we can blow through 12 of them within like 10 minutes. There's really, we always get caught up in talking about this and the other thing, and I think some of them are.
Yeah.
So what if we just, for every meeting going forward, we do 2 chapters, and we each look at the 3 most important things and we talk about it. We don't look at strategies. We don't rank strategies, we don't review strategies. I just, and I don't know, we don't have a report out date, right? We've never been given a charter or a report out schedule, so August, September, October, October, right? Is that when we want to report out? Is that enough time?
There is a schedule somehow, it's not being that followed. I'll bring it up again, because we do have a chart whereby each department, committee, and commission that was assigned some periodic reporting. Like the second meeting in the month of October, the first meeting in the month of December, you know what I mean?
Is
There was
this
some
committee on
regularity.
that chart?
Yes.
So does,
I will,
So you don't know when it is, though, when the next report out?
I'd have to, I have it at home, but yeah.
I mean, I don't mind, I don't necessarily say, I don't know that I wasn't intending to say throw away the process that we've been doing. I mean, I think there's some value to that too, but I just want to see us get to an end so that we can then
I agree.
get our hands on something and help people. I mean, work maybe more closely with the different boards or commissions that need to take some action and be more instrumental, I guess, in making something happen. I don't know what I'm
This is
saying.
certainly a lengthy process, but
So
there
we
are
can't do-
things we would have missed if we just identified 3 or
so
whatever.
we can't do both concurrently, right?
No.
So we either need to top 3 per
And then
and
come
do that
back.
process, and then at a future date go back and do the strategy by strategy. Like we really can't do both, because we're just gonna get, I feel like we're gonna get bogged down again.
I think we just need to be more efficient about
Yeah.
it. Like,
Let's just-
do what
let's
we
go-
do, but we're just.
Let's go another,
Getting through.
the next meeting, see if we can get ourselves keep ourselves on track. How's
So
that?
I will push the pace at the next meeting,
Yes.
from like a moderation.
But
standpoint.
The whole- oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, but the whole thing is, we were trying to come to some common understanding.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
different people who read things differently.
Sure.
And come to some common, and it's, it's taken a very
Yeah.
long time. Maybe we should spend less on that, and more on.
Well, there's a natural conflict here. You have the desire to get this done in a reasonable amount of time, but what we're charged to do cannot be done in a reasonable amount of time. So you can split it up. You can say, we need to report out, we need to get some action going. So let's identify, quickly top 3, hash them out good, but per chapter.
Bless you.
So we give, select board towns some time to start working on things, but you don't abandon the idea of going through this, even though it's tedious. I mean, we did find
We are finding things, exactly.
the interesting things that Barbara brought to us.
No,
We
for
would
real.
not have had that discussion at all.
Absolutely true.
If we were just targeting
Yes.
3 priorities.
No, I
But that's an
agree.
important topic, so. What is our charge? If our charge is to get something out, priorities quickly, okay. If it's to go through this whole thing, in other words, they're not mutually exclusive. We can do both, as you were saying, and that's going to be okay. I'm perfectly fine with, hey, we need to put a little charge in this. Let's find some high-profile things that I think the average citizen would agree with, and we put it out there. But then we come back and finish the rest.
So I would recommend then the next 2 meetings, we split the chapters. First meeting, we review chapters 1 through, actually, first meeting, we would review chapters 5 through 8. Second meeting, we review chapters 1 through 4. And we review our individual top 3s and review among the group. That's what I would recommend doing, because if we still want to put something out in 2 months, then we kind of need to do that, right? Because we still can't go line by line, get all the way to the end of chapter 8. We still have to go back to chapter 1 and pick the important things,
Yeah.
right? So we might as well take a month off, or a month plus off, concentrate on second half for the first meeting. What are our top 3, right? Everyone gets 3 picks per chapter, we talked
Chapters
about
5
it.
through 8.
Yep, 5 through 8, and then the second meeting, if there's no carryover, we do chapters 1 through 4. And we develop a list it's kind of, these are the big thought bubbles, the big
Got some
points.
action plans, actionable items.
Right.
Yep.
Because then it ends up being a month to 2 month time frame. We should hopefully line up with a report out, and at that point, we can circle back to going through. and by doing that, we'll also refresh our memory with chapters 5 through 8 because we haven't read them in a few months, so, right.
So in terms of specific timeframes, are we looking to, let's back it up, start with our report out date to the select board, early November, mid-November, early December? What would be the best for,
No, I mean,
I think
there
we
is
need-
a schedule that was prepared. It's certainly not been shared with anyone, except for members of the select board. And to my knowledge, not everyone has been given their schedule of reports. So
That's
I'm
what
going to say you can make your own.
yeah,
I mean, I was thinking the end of October.
end of October?
Okay.
Yeah, we're almost
So
out
we're
of
going to
August.
report to select board end of October.
Yeah, mid to end of October.
Okay, and so then chapters 5 through 8, we're going to do that by when?
Next-
We're going to do that by our next meeting.
Next
By
meeting.
next meeting, and then the meeting after is going to be chapters 1 through
When are we meeting, the 9th?
Okay, let's,
So,
I'm just thinking about.
Concom's the 19th. 9th. Is the 9th the best?
The 9th might be the school board meeting.
And I'm not available the 9th.
9th is a Monday.
Yes,
The high school is the 26th.
of this month.
Right.
Because they pushed it back. to
Right, because of
before
Labor Day, so I think they'll probably not have another meeting till October.
Well, that's
What I'm
our
thinking.
August meeting, the 26th. They pushed it closer to school starting.
Okay.
So that we have like back-to-back
Then
meetings
we'll
more or
have
less.
I don't know.
I mean, don't schedule it because of that, but
No, we don't want to lose two.
Is the 9th available for people? No.
I'm fine.
You're not.
I won't be in town. I'm not.
I might be
Everybody.
at a school meeting.
Yeah.
I mean,
And Margaret.
We
What
better-
about the 16th?
Better the 16th.
realistically, we need to schedule them, right? And I know there's going to be people absent, not here,
Yeah,
but
of
if we're,
course.
if we have to,
Well, if we did the 16th, you'd have two still. You'd have the 16th and the 30th. You'd have.
that's true.
you
I mean,
could
I'm
do
fine
that.
with the 16th.
All
It
right.
gives us time to brush up. I mean, realistically, you could do the majority of your homework, right, between now and then for all chapters. And
Yeah.
Probably.
chapters 5 through 8 go well, we can do chapters 1 and whatever right after.
So we're doing the 16th and the 30th,
Yep.
Okay.
I mean,
and then
16th and 30th of September.
of September,
Don't get
and
me wrong,
then,
like, I'm starting school in a week after, so, like, I'm not trying to put more work, but I mean, we might as well go through every chapter, right, in the next month, because that's a month away. So we might as well do all 8 chapters.
so what do you want to do? The 16th, we'll do chapters 5 through 8.
I would
We'll
like-
do our top 3
I do
rankings.
like 1 through 8. I mean, that's a
Really?
month
Can
away.
we do that?
Month away?
Yeah, but
No, time-wise at night, we can't.
right. Do you have enough time?
Unless we have a really
Even
long
if it's
meeting
only
night.
3.
At the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can we do the 30th, do 5 through 8? I mean, sorry, 1
1
through
through
4.
4.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so 5 through 8, we each go through and pick up 3 top things out of each chapter that we think are the most important. Okay.
Okay.
I think, let's try that and see. I mean, I don't know. I just.
No, I get it.
I think
I'm
you're
not-
absolutely right, Chris.
I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to.
It's not critical.
I want to
it's
just see
necessary.
something come out of this. We've, we put a lot of work and effort into this,
That's
and I
right.
think,
Because that's the
we need
30th, so I
to-
feel like we can go into October.
Right, and then if we need another recap meeting in the beginning of October,
Yeah, we'd have
That's a
time.
good
before the
idea.
meeting, we
We'd
can
have
make that
time.
happen.
We'd have time for that. So,
So the 16th, the 30th, and then
14th
we'll worry
is
about the
Columbus
next.
yeah.
Day.
And just one other question, Jim. In various meetings I've been in, CPA and others, CPC and others, there's been reference to a housing report done by Jenica Reynolds, which I think could be very useful for this committee to understand what was talked about for affordable housing. There's some report that exists, according to Virginia Ahart and various others. There was something put
She actually
together.
came to the planning board too with some.
Did
Oh,
it?
Janet?
Jenica?
She's not on,
Right, she's no
There
longer
was
in the
something that
housing.
she's, I don't know, but there's something she left behind,
She
apparently,
did,
it's some sort of
something.
housing report that could be very informative for us. That was my
I agree.
hope.
It's very
If we could
interesting.
put our hands on
She
it.
provided like a paragraph summary of what.
You know, it sounds like it was more than that. I don't know if Virginia had a copy though.
That's news to me.
I think that's what Janet said too, was a paragraph.
Yeah.
I think Janet said it was a
Well, if, I saw Virginia earlier, I'll
very short.
I'll
brief.
catch her again and just see if there's, anyway, okay. Because
Yeah.
it just sounded like that had some real meat to it, but maybe I misunderstood it. Because, my gosh, if this really has laid out some thoughts about strategies and motivations for developers, God, let's look at it. But it may not be
We
as much
we
as I
just
think.
met tonight and we're actually moving forward with some ideas.
Yeah.
You know, had some potential
That would be
options.
good. I mean, because we're gonna, I mean,
think
after
every
we,
meeting said
after we identify these things, we have to go back to other people for,
Exactly, that's right. I think even Reedy
Support.
mentioned it too.
Well, I think, so, one more thing with that, and I understand we're the Master Plan Implementation Committee, but I personally would like to see a little more awareness or outreach from our governing board as it comes to implementation a little bit, right? So a communication from the town to the committees, and maybe it takes the list of strategies for that to happen, but, you know, hey, we have this Master Plan Implementation Committee. Your committee is heavily involved in that, you know. We're hoping that we will be able to work through some of these strategies going forward from sort of a governing body perspective, right?
well,
Not just
remember when I
us.
said we needed to have a super committee comprised of
Right.
those key committees and boards who can really mobilize this and make it happen, because it's gonna have to take place
Yeah.
there and then bubble up, because we're, in and of itself, this committee can't do this.
And maybe this
We
committee,
rely on
after the
everybody else.
strategies, takes on that or becomes that, or representatives are part of that, right? I mean, once you identify your top 20 things, it's years' worth of work. Realistically, right? It is. So for a super committee or someone to review and implement, it's going to take years. We could continue to meet and discuss the individual strategies, but at some point it becomes a maintenance, a tracking sheet maintenance function, right? What have we gotten done? Where do we need attention?
Yeah,
So
our role changes a bit.
I feel like,
and maybe the meetings go to less frequent, once a month.
I feel like we identify things that we always have questions on, and we have some members of various boards, but I feel like there should be something more official. Like, if we have questions of a specific committee, you know, we should send it to that chairperson, and even if it's to the next meeting, it should be like put on their agenda, you know,
Yeah.
follow up from MPIC, you know, is on their agenda. Like, you have to answer these questions at your meeting.
That's difficult. It's difficult. So, for instance, I look at what you do, right? You go directly from here to another meeting with information, and you return an answer, and that's how you get answers from one committee to the other. Some people are really good about responding to emails and questions, and many aren't, right? So unless that body is sitting here and then leaves to go participate in their other meeting, there's definitely a loss of time between the email communication and the questions, unless you physically do it. Some people don't have, like, I don't have the time to do that during the day, you know, and it's, some people don't, right? So I think the super committee works for me because the represented committees are there, and they leave with the action item, and they return with an action answer, so.
Actually, we could have several, I mean, just clustered around whatever are our priorities.
Right.
It's a great idea. The thing I am going to be reflective of is, there's three of us here that are retired. We go from, kind of like you said, 6 committee meetings in one day. There's 3 of us here who are still working full-time that are here. Christina's not here, but she
Involved in
works
other
full-time.
things, too.
And we're all involved with a lot of other things.
Right.
And that is one of the issues of our town. We have excellent people in our town that want nothing to do with town government. And they look at us and they go, good for you, and they move on. And, you know, thankfully, good people can do this, yeah. So, but I think let's stick with, my thought is stick with what Mike just said, which is a combination of everybody's recommendations. We do
Let's
these,
try that and see.
do these things for those 2 scheduled meetings, that we all really go back and read and come up with 3 or 4 top things. We probably come up with the same things for the most part, I think, because we've been through this so much.
Right.
It won't be too hard. We do a dedicated report to the select board in writing and say, because what I'm hearing from you guys is the select board is kind of like saying, well, what's the master plan implementation committee coming up with?
It's my feeling. I mean, I don't know. It's just like,
Maybe it hasn't been
I feel like
discussed outright like that.
No,
but
it is, they, you know, they depend on arms and legs everywhere else.
Yeah.
And
So.
But again, it's,
But
they're
I'm not giving up on
volunteers,
this, because
we're
this is so
volunteers.
valuable.
Oh, no one's
I
giving
think
up on
it is.
this. But I would say this has not been a wasted exercise, because I
No.
think going through this
No.
process has made us
We would've
realize
thought of
that,
Yeah, no.
right, that we,
Thought
that
about
there's
60 years before we went in.
there's value
Yeah.
to realizing how far we've come, the process it's taken, and that we can go ahead and separate a little bit and do some prioritization, and then still come back.
Yeah.
And
No, I
that's
agree.
fine.
We wouldn't have
That's-
caught half of this stuff that we're talking about if we hadn't done.
That's right.
what we're doing now.
We have a good understanding of the background too. So even if we didn't delve into all of it, we at least, we have the logic of how
Right.
things went and the setup. And so I think when we go back to look at chapters 5 through 8, you kind of, you know what you're reading a little more, right? You know how it was written, and I think it'll be easier. And like I said, we fall back at a later date. With that, is there any other business that cannot wait?
No.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjournment at 9:00.